Fear. I think the crisis we have in the world today is all about fear. Fear. We live in a world of fear. We're afraid of nuclear power in the hands of Pakistan or North Korea. We fear the global warming. We fear terrorists. We fear drugs. We fear the financial crisis. Fear. I think that at the moment the world is a victim of fear. It has been building up. And we know that not only physical wars have been fought, but there's been a war on drugs. We now have a war on terror. I feel what we really have is a war on you. The system telling you, you are the enemy. You have to behave. And we oblige. We give our names, data, whatever, onto the computer, onto the network. Voluntarily in a way. Because we use Facebook and we Twitter. And we know our phone calls are being monitored. Fear. I think it's the main problem we have to face. Not become fearless, but go to the root of that fear. Now, before I can say anything about the world, I have to tell you about my fear, because what I tell you is always a projection. There's always something of me in what I see and what I perceive. So what is fear for me? I fear rejection, I fear losses, I fear insecurity. I fear being abandoned. I fear not being heard. I fear you. That's really the truth. Maybe I also fear that what is hidden into me, but I see it in you. That's called projection. And as I said before, the war that's been going on is a war on you. Meaning a war on me and you and everybody. And so it's closely related to what's going on inside you and, in this case, me. So what does fear do to me? Things happen. They happen every day. Disappointments, exclusions, lost love. And they hit me. And I'm trying to find out where they hit me. And for me, I came to the conclusion that it actually hit me very low in the spine, in what we call the first chakra. Something stiffens there. Something becomes hard. A defense. And at the moment that happens, I stop being open to the real information. My projection takes over. I only see what is really in me. I only see the hardening. I see the hardening in the world outside and I blame that. Because it's of course much easier to blame the world than to blame or recognize the processes in me. And yet, I believe it is important to recognize the process of fear and what it does to you. Not to become fearless, but to accept the roots of the fear and to understand. And that's the only way, I think, we can deal with this war we have, this thing about fear. Now in me what happens is that in the case something negative happens, I feel rejected or whatever, my energy goes very quickly from somewhere here where I sometimes am in a state that I feel connected and happy and whatever, aware, And it goes down to what in the East they would call the chakras. It goes down the spinal column, and in my case it ends in the lower chakra, but that's not the case for everybody and all the time. Sometimes it stops in the heart, and the fear translates in a heart feeling, and we start giving money for the poor kids in Africa and acting like that. In other cases it goes down more, and it stops at the sex center, and the fear translates in lust or abuse. So the process of dealing with fear is really a process where our awareness, our connectedness, because that's what it is, because I really like to be with you, I like to be one with everything, and therefore with you, goes down, goes through all these stages, and in my case ends up tightening, and that tightening might or has actually led to a thing called prostate cancer, which I now understand is not illogical, but it's related to this fear. And so my preoccupation with the fear in the world therefore has to do with my own. But the lesson that can be learned is that if I can take that fear that seemingly draws the energy down to some stiffening, if I can use that and loosen up again, I can reconnect. And that's what we all know. Sometimes we are so disappointed that we have to respond. Now, as I say, we can respond by lust, we can also respond by anger. Anger is a response where that initial hardening then loosens up and becomes a fight or flight reaction, and you become angry and aggressive. So all that is part of a reaction to what we perceive as threats to ourselves. Now, what is my solution? My solution in my individual case about fear is to try to reconnect to the whole. In fact, soften the stiffened parts and the stiffened energy, soften and let it go up. Come to the heart again and become connected, become aware again. Now, this process of reconnecting has two sides, and I think those are the two major parts of the divine. And just quoting Gandhi on this, truth and love. We're all truth and love. Of course, the divine, the Godhead, everything is one, but it manifests in truth and love. Now, if I try to relate truth and love to that fear, it's kind of a delicate balance. Sometimes I know things about the world, I perceive truth that I cannot get across lovingly. The truth is too heavy. It's not accompanied by love. It's a hard truth. The hard truth that is pushed upon us in the world now is that there are terrorists, that there is a financial crisis, there is distrust. It has become what you could call rational truth. Something that we try to understand, so much money being borrowed, mortgages and so on. But where's the love? The love as the connection. That's what's missing. We're missing the connection. Now let's not use the word love, because then people think it's a little soft. But let's use the word connection. One of the ways to fight the fear in the world is to connect. Connect not only to the people around us and the ones we love. I mean, that's very important, but to connect to everything. To the city, the government, the world, our enemies, but also to the flowers, the animals, and to every atom that the way I see it, is here for a reason. Is conscious, maybe on a different level, but is conscious about being here for a reason. Right now, right here, creation, which is what we're living in, the things that came to be, because I believe it's the divine intention to have love and truth in creation, and that they have to come together. But I believe that all these connectedness, which holds together, and which a physicist would explain to you as energies that resonate, are that love, that connectedness. There would be no material world without connectedness, without vibrations, atoms, electrons, quarks, whatever, relating, connecting, resonating. Now, that resonance is what we have to look for. And in the old days, there was a whole wisdom. You might call it magic, you called it the Vedantic, the old Vedas. It was the knowledge of connections. And people saw it as a magical knowledge. If you knew the connection between me and the flower, and the name of the flower and my name, and everything and everything, if you understood the connections, you understood the world. In Sanskrit it was Ya Evam Veda. 3 words that say that knowledge and power are connected. That if you have the power, you get the knowledge. But it's knowledge about connectedness. It's really knowledge about love. So, what do? We have a world that's full of fear. We are afraid of the terrorists. We are afraid of the tax people. We are afraid of you. Always there. So I think we have to look in what psychology and psychiatry and our dear friend Freud and all those people, and maybe using knowledge from long, long before, that knowledge, that understanding about how our psyche works, we have to use that for the psyche of the world. Because this fear that pervades our lives is a collective fear. It's not anymore you and me, it is me against the government, me against the terrorists, me against Islam, me against what? So we have to reconnect. Now that's an old story, of course. I'm only saying that if we use the techniques that were given to us by the people that developed or discovered psychotherapy and bioenergetics and whatever names they have for all these methodologies, to reunite yourself, to get the energy in yourself soft, flexible, loving again. To use that. And there is a lot of knowledge about that. But it's used for individual patients or to help you get through this crisis or that traumatic experience, and we use all kinds of means, and there is technology like LSD that Albert Hofmann discovered that could help you with it. But it's all pushed away as dealing with symptoms in individual cases. I feel the world now needs those therapies, needs those understandings, those wider tools to deal with the fear, to deal with the unconnectedness that creates the fear. And it's simple to say, well, pick up the phone and phone someone or reach out to someone. But I think we have lost that capacity to reach out because of that fear. So we have to very slowly rebuild communities on a very small scale, starting with the family. Recognize that we've lost the family connection for many people, but beyond the family, your neighbors, your neighborhood, your city, reconnect. And I don't think it's a rational process. I don't think it's a process of rhetorics or political engagement. It's a human engagement. And for me, the way to do that is to look at myself and see how the problems I have when I face fear of rejection, when I meet something that makes me inside stiffen and tighten and get the armor up. The methodologies that I have learned, and they're not very effective all the time, but that they use to release that again and to make it soft, should be used in the world. So we have to start from the real bottom, from our connection to the animistic world, to our connection. And we lost it. We lost it because we believe it's not rational to talk to trees and to enjoy animals or feel connectedness to even to wood or whatever. And yet, that's what we lost. We lost connectedness. We've lost connectedness in the family, we lost connectedness with nature, and we've replaced it by mobile phones. We connect by artificial means and not with people. Our security, do you realize a mobile phone for most people is a security tool? You think you are connected because you can phone the police or your friend or whatever, but it's not really giving you that connectedness. We have tools forever, which are human tools and probably animal tools, to connect with the mind. When you think about a person, when you use that vibration that our brain, our mind, our soul is, and that is connected to everything, suddenly we can connect. We can think about someone and it does reach them. We replace that. We replace that by phone calls, Twittering, Facebooks. Terrible. I would even call them fascist means of replacing our inferiority complex with the superiority of the technology. The iPod is your superior helper. That's real fascism. That is allowing that which is vulnerable and small and lovingly in you and very essential, very easily wounded. That part, to replace that with a machine that looks better and does better and all those things. Let's try to go back to understanding why we use it. I'm not saying don't use a mobile phone. I'm just saying understand what it does to you next to connecting you and make the phone calls and get the cab and all those practical things. It also eats away from our connectedness to ourselves and to the world. Media, those media like iPhones and iPods and all those beautiful things, are extensions of our senses, but they're artificial. And I believe they take away from what we are. They're dangerous. I think children should not be allowed to use all that up to a certain age. And that the telephone and the computer and the internet, apart from having beautiful potential, also has this threat. And we know it. The internet has become Big Brother for most of us. A digital shadow that has all the information from our past. We cannot get away from it. So slowly we're becoming afraid of the internet. I've noticed that there is stuff on the internet that I don't want there to be there. That if I want a visa or this or that, that everybody, a new job, people look for it. The internet is becoming a power bigger than ourselves, and it feeds the fear because we don't use it the right way. In itself, the internet, tools, mobile phones, they're all fine. But we use them in the wrong way. We use them to grow the fear, to make the fear harder. And as in my body, it leads to hardening parts. It leads to the world becoming harder. Stiff, armored, hard. So, fear. Summing it up, fear is what at this moment is all around us. In the world, it's in the media. And I believe that to counteract that fear, to come back to the feeling of communion, the feeling of being together, the feeling of being safe, we have to look at what happens in our own body. And use the tools from the psychotherapy and from all the the great thinkers and doers and therapists of all times to find out how we can use that awareness, how our own body works and our own emotions work, to fight this. And then we fight the fear in the world, and then we fight the financial crisis, and then we fight the wars, and hopefully we will be better off.